Well, I'm here today with Chris Marques and Jackie Spencer, who I'll introduce in a minute. I'm Phil Parker, I'm the designer of the lighting process. The purpose of this short film is just to talk about the lighting process and a couple of people who you can check out on the internet to find out if they're real humans and what they've been up to, who've used the lighting process, and this is their story. So, welcome guys.
Hiya.
For the camera, if you'd maybe like to just tell people who are watching this who you are, what you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm Chris Marques, and I'm one of the choreographers on BBC One Strictly Come Dancing. A few years ago I won the World Salsa Dance Championships over 3 consecutive years, and I can be found online, and all the details are basically on cubangroove.com. And I did the lighting process about 3 weeks ago.
And Jackie?
Well, I'm Chris's partner, so I'm co-choreographer on BBC One Strictly Come Dancing and also co-World Salsa Champion.
So, Chris, that's you and your career.
Yeah.
But many people don't know that you had this condition, ME, chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
And probably many people wouldn't imagine that somebody could be where you are in your career and have an illness like that. So maybe you can just tell the camera about what it was like, how you got diagnosed, who diagnosed you, how long you'd had it, how you coped with it, how you dealt with it.
Well, a little over 10 years ago, I basically came down with what I believed at the time was just a very, very strong flu. It stayed with me for a number of weeks, and the symptoms just seemed to be getting worse and worse, over the period of probably, a month. It suddenly went away, but then 2 weeks later came back, and I then went into a cycle of having this chronic series of episodes of, the symptoms were pains all over the body, joint pain, muscle pain, a very intense fever that would last obviously for days at a time, shivers. The symptoms were just so varied, so wide that it was just very hard to manage when I was basically in full-blown chronic fatigue crisis, ME crisis. And this has stayed with me now for about 10 years.
So how did you cope with your career with all that going on?
Well, unfortunately, one of the things you very quickly learn, if you don't know what you have, you very often kind of keep it hidden. And I just didn't want to tell anyone, so very few people knew. Only the people closest to us knew about it. Unfortunately, the only way I could do my job was to basically become as efficient as possible. Do as little as possible, and really I was living on stimulants. Just to get me out of bed, I would need a Red Bull. But the other side of the coin would be the second I would stop working, I'd have to go straight to bed and basically, in a sense, pay the consequences for the next couple of days. To give you an example, which obviously people aren't aware of, on Strictly Come Dancing, very often, we would have sessions of maybe 3-4 hours to produce a 3 or 4 minute segments for a primetime live show. And for those 3 or 4 hours of rehearsal, I would have to basically take 2, 3, 4 Red Bulls just to get me going through it. And most of the time I would then collapse in my taxi back home, basically. But you don't tell anyone, and you just kind of try to keep going, and you just loosely keep it all together.
And what was it like for you, Jackie, to be with Chris in that time?
Well, obviously I was just his full-time nurse, to be honest, and we'd go to do work, put choreography together and things like that, and we'd arrive at the studio, and within 5 minutes Chris would be ready to go home. And if I tried to push it, it was like, no, don't, there's nothing I can do, I've got to go home to bed. So even just getting out of the house to get into a dance studio was enough to kind of trigger him to exhaustion, really. And then obviously whenever it's something quite important like the BBC, really had to push him through it, keep checking he's okay. So whenever we're supposed to be really focusing, my main focus was on how's he coping with it, is he okay, and not really fully in what we were actually doing at the time.
And how did that affect your futures, you know, in terms of you want to have a career dancing, and what did you think was going to happen?
Well, you know, the first thing, and that's, I think everything just seems to kind of layer on top of each other, you know, because not only was I feeling awful, you know, for my symptoms, the chronic fatigue symptoms, you know, things were making it worse. I was gaining weight because obviously, you know, you can't fake not doing the hours of practice, the hours of training that you need to do. I was gaining weight, my body was no longer responding as it normally would have. I mean, you know, there's such a thing as dynamics, you know, when you're actually dancing, and I could feel that dynamically my body was changing, you know, I could no longer hit extremes and things like that. It just became really difficult because everything seemed to actually make it worse. So the symptoms were bad, the dancing and the training was going worse, I was gaining weight, my brain wasn't as sharp as it was, and I knew it was not my normal state. So that's really where it was.
And then I guess you got a diagnosis by who diagnosed you?
Only 3 years ago, my normal GP basically, I mean, I was having blood tests, blood samples, I was having, I mean, test after test after test.
On
I
a
think,
monthly basis,
yeah,
wasn't it,
yeah.
blood tests?
I mean, for a period of probably 8-9 years, you could look at my medical history, and every single month there would be a battery of tests being done. And one day, because nothing obviously was coming up, you know, all that was showing up was just an elevated white cell count, as if, you know, my body was fighting something, but there was nothing there to fight, you know. And one day my doctor just came back and just said, Chris, I've just come back from this conference, and it was on chronic fatigue and on ME, and I think that's what you have, you know, all the symptoms fit, and it just seems to be presenting itself in the right way, you know. So he said, yeah, chronic fatigue.
So then I guess you tried lots of things to try and fix.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're dancers, but basically the lifestyle is very much akin to an athlete's lifestyle at the end of the day, even though, you know, because of chronic fatigue, I don't exactly look like an athlete, but the lifestyle is that of an athlete, the mentality is that of an athlete, and therefore, you know, when you hit a barrier, you just have to smash it, you have to go through it. And the first thing I thought, well, if I'm tired, what do normal people do when they're tired? They just take more vitamins, and they just take more things, and minerals and supplements, and therefore I just absolutely overloaded, didn't I?
You spent about £300 a month on vitamins.
Yeah. I can't deny it did make me feel slightly better, but we're talking about, you know, a fraction of a little improvement, you know. But I was willing to do anything it took. If that's all I could get out of it, well, so be it. You know, it's better than nothing. So first thing was, okay, let's just beat this. Let's just kind of do everything we can to make this work. So supplements first of all. Then I looked at my lifestyle in detail. Okay, how can I squeeze more sleeping hours here, there, the other, and how can I simplify my my day-to-day life? You know. The other thing I did as well was public transport. Let's not do that. Taxis everywhere, so you can sleep on the way to places, on the way back to places, and that was the attitude. Was just, you know, okay, I've got this, let's just take care of it. And unfortunately, supplements did a little bit, helped a little bit, but not that much. Then we were in a fantastic situation because obviously, because of our position in the dance world, you know, we have an awful lot of organizations that support us, and one of those organizations is Champneys, you know, the spas, and they were the first ones to say, well, look, just calm down, stay with us for 6 weeks, get your nutrition sorted, rest, you'll come out, you know, invigorated and feeling better. You don't turn down an invitation like that, so you just do it. You know, we went down, and I mean, within 2 days I had a nutrition test, you know, food allergies and things like that. And I mean, I think I had something like 15 food allergies, you know, it was just something ridiculous. I think I could just about manage water and be alright, you know. So they sorted my food, and again, you know, I felt slightly better, you know, and there's no doubt that for 6 weeks my waking hours were good, you know. I still had the brain fog and I still had the occasional pain and things like that, but they were better than usual. But I was doing nothing, you know. So I felt slightly better after 6 weeks, and then came out, and obviously, as expected, very quickly. Very, very quickly. I think probably within a couple of days, symptoms started coming back again, and things were back to usual, really.
So this is a very normal story, isn't it? If you've spoken to other people with these kind of issues, that you get a small change, lasts temporarily, and then disappears.
Yes.
And then, of course, we move on to the lighting process. So
Yes.
how did you go about the lighting process?
Well, again, you know, we're choreographers on Strictly Come Dancing, and this year we had one of the most amazing years, because we were lucky enough to be able to focus on a few of the couples. So we specifically worked with Tom Chambers and Austin Healy, and we became very, very good friends, very close friends with Austin, because we were basically working with him on a weekly basis. We choreographed most of his Latin dances, and you know, we were up in Leicester, you know, very often to kind of coach them through the weeks. And we were over a coffee, and we were just chatting, and he was just asking us a few different things, and out of the blue, obviously, you know, came the question, and I just said, well, you know, I fight chronic fatigue on a day-to-day, and I'm always kind of tired, and I struggle a bit with it, but you know what? Life's for the living, so I just do what I have to do, you know. But most of the time when I do something really, really good, I pay the price the next day, or maybe in a couple of hours even. So Austin then straight away said to me, all right, I've got something, it's worked for my wife. He was very skeptical, you know, at the beginning. He said to me, you know, like, look, when I first went up for it, I'd spent so much money worldwide on different treatments. My wife basically was really struggling through it, and he said this worked for her. I mean, she's a different person, or shall I say, she is who she should have been all along. And he goes, let me get you on the program, let me just get you on the treatment and do it. And well, you know, I did.
So you were there as well, and you saw what happened. What changes did you notice in Chris?
Well, the transformation's actually been amazing. I mean, we went to train, actually, Austin again, the first day of the lightning process. And even Austin was like, Chris is like a different guy. He was, even to the fact that he thought, oh my God, what have I done, sending him to Phil, because he was bursting with energy. So almost to the point of being a tyrant. But it's fantastic to see him like that, you know. And it's been a couple of weeks now, and he's been amazing. Just, yeah, bursting with energy every day. So it's been fantastic.
What's it been like for you guys?
For me, it's not an exaggeration, you know. It really has been a transformation, and I'll be honest, anytime I think about it, I can't help but smile as I'm talking about it, because, you know, at the end of the day, I've had this for 10 years, and I'm not someone that gets depressed, but, you know, I was getting really down about it, because at the end of the day, when there's nothing you can do about something, when even the doctors believe you, but there's nothing they can do to help you, you really do kind of start going, okay, what the hell am I going to do here, you know? And I did the process, and I must admit, we hadn't told you this, but we were booked that whole week to work for the BBC. And we basically did the lighting process in the morning, and we would basically get in a cab, leave here, straight for Studio Centre, or wherever we were basically coaching the couples, Austin and Erin, or whoever it was. And the first day I walked into the training room and I was just on top of the world. And for me, it was the most amazing thing I'd ever done, you know. I've been to amazing places, I've done amazing things, but to be able to regain my life in such a short, amount of time, that first morning I walked out and I was done. That was it, and
Cured.
yeah, I was, yeah, definitely. That's the way I look at it, I mean, like, I walked out that first day and I felt $1 million. And,
I mean, if I can just add, I was saying we'd turn up at the dance studio to work on our own stuff and basically we'd be there 5 minutes and you'd have to go. Now we're getting booted out of the dance studios. They're like, we want to close, we want to go home, guys, leave, so...
In the last 15 days, well, since the lightning process, 10-15 days, we've already done something like 70 hours of dance rehearsals.
And before, in 15 days, how much would you have done?
Probably half an hour. The time it would take us to get there and come back.
That's amazing.
I
So
mean,
then, people watching this will naturally have a question, which will be something like, so you did like a 12-hour seminar, and after the first 4 hours of it, you felt that much change.
Yeah.
How do you account for the fact that ME and chronic fatigue, which are considered to be neurological diseases by the World Health Organization, which is something the lightning process agrees with, how do you explain such a rapid change in physical illness?
Yeah. I think the question is not whether or the chronic fatigue is a physical illness. I think the question is to be shifted, and that's what I did. Can I affect the way chronic fatigue presents itself in my body? No one will change my mind over the fact that chronic fatigue is a real illness. No one will change my mind over the fact that, we both have spent 10 years, going through the pain, the aches, the fever, the sweats, the shivers, convulsions. We've gone through that for 10 years. No one will ever take away from me the fact that is an illness. But the liberating concept to me is the fact that it was shifted over to what can I do about it. And within those 4 hours, those four first hours, I immediately kind of realized that there's something that's very clear. I'm a dancer. I'm very aware of what my body, through movement, can do to change my mood. On a basic level, it's absolutely impossible for me to actually dance and not be congruent or in alignment, emotionally with what's going on. And when you push that to a certain extent, you kind of realize that your body definitely has an ability to kind of take care of itself, correct certain issues. And I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a doctor, but I'm able to say that, certain things, I'm able to actually affect the way my body behaves and the way my body actually handles things. And I think that was the biggest thing that happened within those first 4 hours. It was the fact that suddenly I went from being a passive sufferer of chronic fatigue to an active participant in the healing process, really.
It's very nicely summarised. And so you've been through this journey. People watching this will, of course, be Googling you to find out if you are real people, and they'll find out that you are.
CubanGroup.com, buy the DVD.
And what would your message be? If you could say one thing to the people who are watching. Most of them who will either have chronic fatigue or ME or know someone who has it, be a family member or a friend. If you could say something to them, what would you say based on your personal experience?
Well, look, I know what you feel. I felt it, and you know that what you have is real. At the end of the day, I know everyone that I meet that has chronic fatigue has only one thing in mind. They want to get better. If you want to get better, you'll do anything it takes, and this is exactly what I've done. And do it. It's the best thing you'll ever do in your life.
Great, thank you very much. Would you like to add anything, Jackie?
Just do the lightning process.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.